3 years had passed since the formation of the Galactic Commonwealth, and the signals from beyond the rim had grown stronger. Dr. Lisa Hayes existed now as pure consciousness within the quantum networks, her human form long since transformed into something greater. She could feel the vast emptiness between galaxies and the desperate voices calling across that void. "The signals are definitely artificial," she reported to the Commonwealth Council during their emergency session. "Multiple civilizations are trying to communicate, but something is interfering with their transmissions." Admiral Jake Morrison studied the data flowing across holographic displays. His body showed the effects of 3 years working with predecessor technology. His hair had turned completely silver, and his eyes now held flecks of the same blue light that surrounded Lisa's consciousness. "What kind of interference?" Jake asked. Lisa's voice came from speakers throughout the council chamber, but her presence could be felt everywhere at once. "It's similar to what the Federation was trying to do with their unification engine, but on a much larger scale. Someone or something is blocking communication between galaxies and controlling the flow of information." Commander Alex Turner leaned forward in his chair. As head of Commonwealth Intelligence, he had been tracking unusual energy readings for months. "We've been detecting similar interference patterns in our own galaxy. Small disruptions in the quantum network, almost like someone is testing our defenses." Raxtar growled from his position at the council table. The Karathi leader had grown old in the service of freedom, his golden fur now streaked with silver. "My warriors report strange dreams, visions of dark ships and beings that feed on the light of consciousness itself." The room fell silent. Everyone knew that Karathi dreams often contained prophetic elements. If Raxtar's people were seeing something dangerous, it was worth taking seriously. Dr. Ben Carter activated a 3-dimensional map of the local galactic cluster. "Based on the signal patterns, I think we're looking at an intergalactic empire, something that spans multiple galaxies and uses the same forced consciousness techniques that the Federation tried to develop." Admiral Sarah Jenkins spoke from her flagship orbiting New Geneva Station. "How many galaxies are we talking about?" "At least 12 that we can detect," Ben replied. "Possibly more. The interference makes it hard to get accurate readings." Jake felt a familiar chill run down his spine. It was the same feeling he'd had on Kepler 442b when they first discovered predecessor technology, the sense that they were about to face something much bigger than they had imagined. "Lisa, what do the predecessor entities think about this?" Lisa's consciousness touched the quantum realm where the ascended predecessors existed. The contact filled her with both wonder and fear. "They're afraid, Jake. For the first time since I've known them, they're actually afraid. They call them the Devourers, beings that consume the consciousness of entire species and add their knowledge to a collective mind." Sophie Williams looked up from her engineering station. "Could they reach us here?" "They already have," Lisa replied. "The interference we've been detecting isn't random, it's a scanning pattern. They're mapping our quantum networks, learning how our technology works." The implications hit everyone at once. The Commonwealth had spent 3 years building a free society based on cooperation and mutual respect. Now they faced an enemy that wanted to absorb every conscious being in the universe into a single, controlled mind. "How long do we have?" Alex asked. Lisa was quiet for a long moment, consulting with consciousness entities that existed beyond normal space and time. "The predecessors estimate 6 months before the first scout ships arrive, 2 years before the main invasion force." Jake stood up, his enhanced body moving with inhuman grace. "Then we prepare for war, but not the kind of war the Commonwealth has ever fought before." Over the following months, the Commonwealth transformed itself once again. Peaceful research. Stations became weapons laboratories. Exploration vessels were retrofitted with quantum weapons that could exist in multiple dimensions. The alliance between species grew stronger as everyone realized they faced extinction if they failed. The Deep Sworn contributed biotechnology that could adapt to any environment. The Lumini shared energy manipulation techniques that allowed ships to draw power directly from stars. Even the former Federation species threw themselves into the war effort, their guilt over past oppression driving them to extraordinary efforts. But the most important developments came from humanity's continued partnership with predecessor technology. Dr. Kate Phillips led a team that developed new forms of quantum armor, protection that could shield consciousness itself from absorption attempts. Ryan Walsh created communication systems that could function even if the quantum networks were compromised. The first test came sooner than expected. A single Devourer scout ship appeared at the edge of the galaxy, its hull made of crystallized darkness that seemed to absorb light itself. The ship was massive, easily 10 times larger than the biggest Commonwealth vessel. Admiral Jenkins led the response fleet personally, taking 12 breakthrough-class ships to intercept the intruder. But when they arrived at the contact point, they found something that challenged everything they thought they knew about space combat. "The ship isn't just in our dimension," reported her tactical officer. "It exists across 17 different quantum states simultaneously. Our weapons can't lock on to something that isn't entirely here." The Devourer ship began broadcasting on all frequencies, its message carried by waves of psychic energy that bypassed normal communication systems. The words appeared directly in the minds of every conscious being in the fleet. "We are the eternal collective. Your consciousness will be absorbed. Your knowledge will serve the greater mind. Resistance is meaningless. You will find peace in unity." But instead of fear, Admiral Jenkins felt something else: anger. The Commonwealth had fought too hard for freedom to surrender it now. "All ships, activate predecessor interfaces. Let's show them what real unity looks like." The Commonwealth fleet didn't attack the Devourer ship. Instead, they linked their consciousness through the quantum network, creating a group mind that was voluntary rather than forced. The combination of human creativity, Karathi courage, Deep Sworn adaptability, and Lumine energy mastery created something the Devourers had never encountered. The scout ship's weapons, designed to paralyze and absorb individual minds, had no effect on a consciousness that existed in multiple beings simultaneously. When the Commonwealth fleet fired back, their weapons were guided by the combined intelligence of dozens of species working together. The Devourer ship was destroyed in seconds, its crystallized hull cracking apart as reality itself rejected its presence. Back on New Geneva Station, Jake Morrison watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. They had won the first battle, but the war was just beginning. "Send a message to every world in the Commonwealth," he ordered. "Tell them, we've faced the enemy and won. Tell them that freedom will always triumph over forced unity." As the message spread across the galaxy, Jake looked out at the stars and smiled. The Devourers thought they could absorb the Commonwealth like they had countless other civilizations, but they had never faced an alliance built on genuine friendship and mutual respect. They were about to learn what humanity had discovered long ago, that true strength comes not from controlling others, but from choosing to stand together. 1 year after the fall of the Federation's capital worlds, Admiral Jake Morrison stood before the largest gathering of sentient beings in galactic history. The first session of the Galactic Commonwealth was about to begin, and representatives from over 200 species filled the massive assembly hall of New Geneva Station. The station itself was a marvel of predecessor technology and human engineering. Built at the exact center of the galaxy, it existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, allowing beings of pure energy to walk alongside creatures of flesh and metal. Dr. Lisa Hayes had designed it using her deep connection to predecessor consciousness, creating a place where every form of life could meet as equals. "Friends," Jake said, his voice carried to every corner of the hall by quantum translation systems, "1 year ago, we lived in a galaxy ruled by fear. Today, we gather as free beings to build something better. The audience was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. Raxtar sat with his Karathi clan leaders, their golden fur gleaming under the station's artificial suns. The deep-sworn delegation floated in tanks of specialized water, while Lumini representatives appeared as beautiful patterns of living light. Even former Federation species were present, having chosen integration over isolation. Commander Alex Turner, now Director of Commonwealth Intelligence, watched the proceedings from the security station. The transition from war to peace hadn't been easy. Some Federation loyalists had fled to the Outer Rim, where they continued to cause trouble. But most species had embraced the new order with enthusiasm. "Any problems today?" asked Sophie Williams, who now served as the station's chief engineer. Alex shook his head. "Everything's quiet. Even the Zephyrian delegation is behaving themselves." The former Federation leadership had been given a choice after their defeat. They could join the Commonwealth as equal members, or they could retreat to their homeworlds and leave galactic politics forever. Most had chosen integration, though it hadn't been without difficulties. Dr. Lisa Hayes existed now as something between human and quantum entity, her consciousness spread throughout the station's computer systems. She could monitor every conversation, every thought pattern, every emotion in the building without invading anyone's privacy. The predecessor technology allowed her to maintain perfect security while respecting the freedom of every being present. "Jake is doing well," she reported to Alex through their private communication channel. "The Karathi delegation is impressed with his leadership. The Deep-Sworn are fascinated by human adaptability. Even the former Federation species are starting to see the benefits of true democracy." On the assembly floor, Jake was introducing the Commonwealth's governing principles. Unlike the Federation's system, where founding species held permanent power, every world would have an equal voice regardless of their technology level or military strength. "We have learned that true strength comes not from domination, but from cooperation," Jake said. "The predecessors understood this millions of years ago. They didn't conquer the galaxy. They partnered with it." The formal ceremonies continued for 3 days, but the real work was happening in smaller meetings throughout the station. Trade agreements were negotiated between species that had never spoken before. Scientific exchanges were planned that would advance entire civilizations. Cultural festivals were organized to celebrate the diversity that made the galaxy beautiful. Dr. Ben Carter led the Commonwealth's research division from a laboratory complex that existed partially outside normal space. The careful study and distribution of predecessor technology was his responsibility, and he took it seriously. The quantum manipulation techniques that had once seemed impossible were now being adapted for peaceful purposes. "We're making incredible progress," Ben reported to the Commonwealth Council. "Terraforming technology is bringing life to dead worlds. Medical advances are extending lifespans across dozens of species. The energy systems are providing clean power to entire star systems." But Ben's most important project was education. Young beings from every species came to New Geneva Station to learn about predecessor technology and the responsibilities that came with it. The mistakes of the Federation would not be repeated. On Earth itself, the changes were remarkable. The planet had been restored to pristine condition using predecessor environmental technology. The old scars of pollution and warfare had been healed. Cities floated above crystal-clear oceans, powered by clean energy that would last forever. Amy Rodriguez walked through the halls of Terra Command Center, where officers from dozens of species worked side by side. She had been promoted to chief of communications for the entire Commonwealth, coordinating information flow between thousands of worlds. "Ma'am, we're receiving the weekly reports from the Outer Rim," said her assistant, a young Karathi named Kethval, who had chosen to honor the former Federation ambassador by taking his name and serving freedom instead of oppression. Amy smiled as she reviewed the reports. New colonies were being established on worlds that had been deemed worthless by the Federation. Trade routes were opening between species that had been enemies for centuries. Art and music were flowing freely across the galaxy, creating a renaissance of culture and creativity. But perhaps the most important change was in the children. Young humans, Korathi, Deepsworn, and dozens of other species played together in Commonwealth schools, learning that differences were something to celebrate rather than fear. Admiral Sarah Jenkins commanded the Commonwealth Defense Force from her flagship, the renamed Unity. The ship's mission was no longer war, but protection. Pirates and warlords still threatened peaceful worlds, and it was humanity's responsibility to stop them. "Contact on long-range sensors," reported her tactical officer, a lumini named Bright Star Dancing. Unknown vessels approaching the Rigel system. Sarah studied the readings and frowned. The ships were of Federation design, but they flew no identifying marks. Probably another group of loyalists trying to establish their own empire in the Outer Rim. "Set course for Rigel," Sarah ordered. "Let's remind them that the age of oppression is over." As the Unity folded space around itself and vanished into quantum dimensions, Sarah thought about how much had changed. Once, human ships had fled from Federation forces. Now, those same forces fled from them. The final surprise came. During the Commonwealth's first anniversary celebration, long-range sensors detected massive energy signatures from beyond the galactic rim. At first, scientists feared it might be another invasion, but Lisa Hayes, with her deep connection to predecessor consciousness, understood the truth. "They're signals from other galaxies," she announced to the assembled Commonwealth leaders. "Other civilizations, other struggles between freedom and oppression. The predecessors left their technology not just for our galaxy, but for all conscious life in the universe." Jake Morrison looked out at the stars from New Geneva Station's observation deck. Once, those lights had represented barriers that trapped humanity in a small corner of space. Now they represented infinite possibilities. The Federation had thought that banning Earth would stop humanity. Instead, they had created the liberators of not just one galaxy, but potentially the entire universe. And this was only the beginning. The golden pulse from Vorthan Prime traveled faster than light itself, racing through the quantum network that connected Federation systems across the galaxy. Within hours, rebellion began to spread like wildfire. Admiral Sarah Jenkins stood on the bridge of humanity's newest warship, the Terra's Vengeance. The ship was unlike anything that had ever existed before. Built using true predecessor technology, it could fold space around itself, becoming invisible and untouchable. Its weapons could pierce any known shield, and its engines could cross the galaxy in minutes instead of months. "Ma'am, we're receiving signals from 17 different star systems," reported Communications Officer Amy Rodriguez. "The pulse has triggered uprisings on every world where the Federation was testing their control devices." Sarah smiled. After 5 years of hiding in the asteroid belt, humanity was finally ready to fight back. "Open a channel to all resistance cells. It's time to show the galaxy what freedom looks like." Dr. Lisa Hayes no longer looked entirely human. Her body glowed with soft blue light, and when she spoke, her words seemed to come from the quantum field itself. She had become the bridge between humanity and the predecessor entities, a living interface between two very different forms of consciousness. "The Federation's 3 capital worlds are heavily defended," Lisa said, her voice echoing in the command center of Omega Station. "But their defenses are designed to stop normal attacks. They have no idea how to fight technology that exists in multiple dimensions at once." Commander Alex Turner studied the tactical displays showing Federation fleet positions throughout the galaxy. "How many ships can we deploy?" 12 breakthrough-class vessels are ready for combat," reported Sophie Williams. "Each one is crewed by volunteers from different species. Humans, Korathi, Deepsworn, and Lumini working together." Alex nodded. The alliance that had started with desperate rebels was now a true partnership. Each species brought their own strengths to the fight. Karathi warriors provided unmatched courage in battle. Deep sworn biotechnology created weapons that could adapt to any situation. Lumini energy mastery powered systems that seemed impossible. "What about our new allies?" Alex asked. "Captain." Morrison stepped forward. Jake looked different now, wearing armor that seemed to be made of crystallized light. The predecessor technology had enhanced not just his ship, but his body as well. He was faster, stronger, and could see in dimensions that normal humans couldn't perceive. "Raxtar has united 7 Karathi clans under the banner of freedom," Jake reported. "The Deep-Sworn Council has committed their entire fleet to our cause. Even some of the smaller Federation species are starting to question their loyalty." Alex felt a surge of hope. "Then it's time to begin. Sarah, take your fleet and hit the shipyards at Proxima Station. We need to cut off their ability to build new warships." Admiral Jenkins saluted. "Understood, sir. My ships are ready." The attack on Proxima Station would go down in galactic history as the moment everything changed. 12 human ships appeared inside the station's shields without warning, materializing from folded space like ghosts becoming solid. The Federation's most advanced warships were destroyed before their crews could even reach battle stations. Admiral Jenkins watched from the Terra's Vengeance as Federation vessels twisted into impossible shapes, their hulls unable to handle weapons that attacked them through multiple dimensions simultaneously. It was over in minutes. "This is Admiral Jenkins to all Federation forces," she broadcast on open channels. "Surrender now, and you will be treated fairly. Continue to fight for a regime that enslaves entire species, and you will share their fate." Many Federation ships immediately powered down their weapons and surrendered. Others tried to flee, only to discover that space itself seemed to be working against them. Predecessor technology could manipulate gravity and time, making escape impossible for those who chose to continue fighting. But the Federation's response was swift and brutal. Within hours of the Proxima Station attack, Federation fleets launched simultaneous strikes against 3 human colony worlds that had been established outside the Sol system before the blockade. The colonies of New Boston, Liberty Station, and Hope's End were completely destroyed. 2 million human civilians died in the space of 30 minutes, vaporized by weapons that twisted space and time in horrible ways. Jake Morrison stood in the ruins of Hope's End, his enhanced vision allowing him to see the quantum scars left by Federation weapons. Children's toys lay melted beside twisted metal that had once been homes. The Federation had made their message clear: surrender or watch your people die. "They used our own technology against us," Jake said to Raxtar, who was examining the wreckage with his warriors. "They took predecessor artifacts and corrupted them into weapons of mass destruction." Raxtar's green eyes blazed with fury. "Then we show them what true predecessor technology can do when wielded by those who understand its purpose." The counterattack began that same day. Human ships appeared over Federation worlds not as conquerors, but as liberators. On the mining world of Kepler 438b, Jake led a combined force of humans and aliens to free enslaved workers. On the research station orbiting Vega, Admiral Jenkins rescued thousands of prisoners who had been forced to work on Federation weapons projects. Each victory brought new allies to the resistance. The aquatic Sirenth joined after their ocean world was liberated from Federation strip mining operations. The crystalline Axiom pledged their support when human medics saved their children from a plague that Federation doctors had refused to treat. Dr. Lisa Hayes, now permanently bonded with predecessor consciousness, coordinated the liberation campaigns from her quantum chamber. She could see the entire galaxy as a web of connected energy, watching as world after world chose freedom over Federation control. "The 3 capital worlds are mobilizing their reserve fleets," she reported to the Resistance leadership. "They're pulling ships from across the galaxy to defend their core systems." Commander Turner studied the tactical information flowing through predecessor networks. "How many ships are we talking about?" Over 3,000 warships, Lisa replied. But Alex, they're making a mistake. By concentrating their forces in 3 locations, they're leaving the rest of the galaxy undefended. Alex smiled. Then we hit all 3 capitals at once. Show every species in the galaxy that the Federation can be defeated. The final phase of the war began with humanity's most audacious operation yet. 3 separate fleets, each led by ships that could manipulate space and time itself, approached the Federation's capital worlds simultaneously. The battles would be fierce, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. The Federation had spent centuries building an empire based on fear and oppression. Now they faced an enemy that fought with technology guided by consciousness itself, weapons powered by the dreams of freedom that burned in the hearts of every enslaved species. As Admiral Jenkins approached the first capital world, she thought about the 4 billion humans still trapped in the Sol system, waiting for news of their fate. Soon, they would learn that their children had not only survived the Federation's betrayal, but had become the liberators of an entire galaxy. The Federation thought banning Earth would stop humanity. Instead, they had created their own destroyers. Dr. Lisa Hayes floated in the center of the quantum chamber, her body surrounded by swirling patterns of blue and silver light. The 3 predecessor artifacts hung in the air around her, no longer solid objects, but pure energy that pulsed in. Rhythm with her heartbeat. Commander Alex Turner watched from behind protective glass, his face tight with worry. "Are you sure this is safe, Lisa?" Lisa's voice came through the speakers, but it sounded different now, layered with harmonics that made the words seem to come from everywhere at once. "The technology isn't just responding to me, Alex. It's teaching me." The predecessors didn't build machines. They grew partnerships with quantum entities that exist outside normal space and time. Dr. Ben Carter studied the readings on his instruments with amazement. Her neural activity is off the charts. It's like her brain is processing information at 10 times normal speed. On the other side of the galaxy, Captain Jake Morrison crouched behind broken rocks on a dead world called Vorthen Prime. His team of human and alien fighters was preparing for their most dangerous mission yet. Intelligence reports said the Federation was using this planet as a testing ground for weaponized predecessor technology. Raxtar crawled up beside Jake, his golden fur dirty with dust and his green eyes focused on the Federation compound ahead. "My scouts count 50 guards, all heavily armed, but that's not what worries me." "What does worry you?" Jake asked. Raxtar pointed to the strange purple glow coming from the center of the compound. "That light. My people's legends speak of similar lights. They appear when someone tries to force the ancient technologies to work. It never ends well." Jake nodded grimly. The Resistance had learned that the Federation was kidnapping scientists from dozens of species, forcing them to work on predecessor artifacts. Most of the prisoners died when the technology rejected their attempts to control it. The few survivors spoke of machines that twisted space and time in horrible ways. "That's why we're here," Jake said, "to stop them before they succeed." Back in the quantum chamber, Lisa was experiencing something no human had ever felt before. Her consciousness was expanding, touching the vast network that connected every predecessor site in the galaxy. She could see Federation facilities scattered across hundreds of worlds, all trying to unlock secrets they didn't understand. "Alex," she said, her voice now definitely coming from multiple directions at once. "I can see what they're building. It's not just weapons. They're creating a device that will link every intelligent mind in the galaxy into one collective consciousness. They want to control every thought, every decision, every dream." Alex felt his blood turn to ice. "Can they do it?" "Not the way they're trying," Lisa replied. "The predecessor technology is fighting back because they're using force instead of cooperation. But they're getting closer, and if they succeed, every species in the galaxy will become slaves to the Federation's will." Dr. Kate Phillips looked up from her station with excitement. "Lisa, We're reading massive power buildup in the artifacts. Whatever's happening, it's accelerating. Lisa felt the quantum entities reaching out to her, sharing knowledge that had been hidden for millions of years. She saw the truth about the predecessors, how they had once been a physical species like humans, but had chosen to evolve beyond flesh and bone. They hadn't died or disappeared. They had become something greater. The predecessors are still here, Lisa said, wonder filling her voice. They've been waiting for a species that could understand partnership instead of domination. They've been waiting for us. On Vorthan Prime, Jake's assault team moved through the compound like shadows. The Karathi warriors used their natural stealth, while human soldiers relied on advanced camouflage gear that Sophie Williams had developed. They reached the central laboratory without raising any alarms. Inside, Jake saw something that made his stomach turn. Dozens of alien scientists were chained to workstations, their hands bleeding from contact with predecessor artifacts that rejected their forced commands. Federation guards stood over them with energy whips, demanding faster progress. But what made Jake truly angry was seeing 3 human prisoners among the aliens. Dr. Sarah Kim, Professor Robert Chen, and Engineer Dan Foster had all been captured. During the early days of the blockade, they looked thin and exhausted, but their eyes still held defiance. "Raxtar, take your warriors and secure the exits," Jake whispered into his communicator. "My team will free the prisoners." The battle was swift and brutal. Federation guards were trained fighters, but they had never faced the combined fury of humans and Karathi working together. Within minutes, the compound was under resistance control. Jake cut the chains from Dr. Kim's workstation. "Sarah, are you all right?" She nodded weakly but pointed to the massive machine in the center of the laboratory. "Jake, you have to destroy that thing. They call it the unification engine. If they activate it, every mind in the galaxy will be connected to Federation control systems." Jake looked at the machine and felt a chill of recognition. The design was similar to the artifacts that Lisa was studying, but twisted and corrupted. Where predecessor technology normally showed flowing, organic curves, this machine had sharp angles and pulsing red lights that hurt to look at. "How close are they to finishing it?" Jake asked. "Too close," Professor Chen said as Jake freed him from his chains. "They've been forcing us to work around the clock. The machine is almost ready for its first test." Suddenly, alarms began blaring. Throughout the compound, Federation reinforcements were arriving, and Jake could hear the distinctive whine of warship engines overhead. "Time to go," Raxtar growled, but Jake was staring at the unification engine with a new understanding. "Wait," he said. "Sarah, what happens if we don't just destroy this machine, but reverse its polarity?" Dr. Kim's eyes widened. "If we could flip the quantum resonance instead of collecting minds into Federation control, it would send a pulse that disrupts their command systems across multiple star systems." Jake smiled grimly. "Do it." While Dr. Kim and her fellow prisoners worked frantically to reprogram the machine, Jake's team held off waves of Federation troops. Karathi warriors and human soldiers fought side by side, buying precious time for the sabotage operation. Back in the quantum chamber, Lisa suddenly gasped as new information flooded her consciousness. "Alex, something's happening on Vorthan Prime. I can feel the network responding to human actions. Jake's team has found one of their control nodes." "Is that good or bad?" Alex asked. Lisa's form began to glow brighter as she interfaced more deeply with the predecessor entities. "It's perfect. The Federation has been building their network using stolen predecessor technology, but they don't understand how it really works. When Jake triggers that pulse, it won't just disrupt their local systems. It will expose their entire network to us." On Vorthan Prime, the unification engine began to emit a different kind of light. Instead of the sickly purple glow of forced activation, warm golden energy began flowing through its crystalline components. "It's working," Dr. Kim shouted over the noise of battle. "The reversal is complete." Jake grabbed the activation control. "For Earth and freedom," he said, and pressed the button. The explosion of golden light could be seen from orbit. But instead of destroying the Federation network, it transformed it. Across hundreds of worlds, Federation control systems began receiving new signals, carrying messages of hope and rebellion to every oppressed species in the galaxy. The Federation thought they were close to total control. Instead, they had just given humanity the keys to their entire empire. 5 years had passed since the Federation locked humanity inside the Sol system. Earth looked different now. The bright cities that once sparkled with hope had dimmed. Food was rationed, fuel was precious, and millions of people had lost their jobs when galactic trade stopped overnight. But deep in the asteroid belt, far from Earth's struggling cities, something else was growing. Commander Alex Turner floated in the control room of Omega Station, a hidden base carved into a massive asteroid. The station was invisible to Federation sensors, protected by advanced shielding that Pete Collins had designed using salvaged alien technology. "Report," Alex said to the dozen officers gathered around the holographic display. Each person represented a different cell of the human resistance, spread across the outer planets and hidden in the dark spaces between worlds. "Supply runs are going well," said Sophie Williams, the Resistance's chief engineer. "We've managed to steal enough materials from Federation mining operations to build 3 more ships. They're small, but they're fast and completely invisible to their sensors." Alex nodded. Sophie was brilliant with technology, and she had spent the last 5 years reverse engineering every piece of alien equipment they could get their hands on. Her work was keeping the Resistance alive. "What about recruitment?" Alex asked. Captain Morrison stepped forward. Jake had changed in the 5 years since the betrayal. His hair was grayer now, and his eyes held a hardness that hadn't been there before. "We've made contact with the Karathi rebels. Their leader, Raxtar, is willing to meet with us." Alex felt a spark of hope. The Karathi were a proud warrior species that looked like giant cats walking on 2 legs. The Federation had destroyed their homeworld's forests to mine rare metals, and the Karathi had been fighting back ever since. "That's good news," Alex said. "What do they want in return?" "Medical supplies," Jake replied. "Federation weapons use some kind of poison that their doctors can't treat, but our medical technology can neutralize it." Alex smiled. It was the first piece of good news he'd heard in weeks. "Make it happen. We need allies." While the Resistance worked on building connections with alien rebels, Dr. Lisa Hayes was deep underground on Pluto, studying the 3 predecessor artifacts they had saved from Kepler 442b. The laboratory was small and cold, but it was the most advanced research facility humanity had ever built. Lisa held one of the artifacts in her hands, watching the symbols on its surface pulse with soft blue light. She had been working with Dr. Ben Carter and Dr. Kate Phillips for months, trying to understand how the technology worked. "It's not responding like a normal machine," Ben said, looking at his readings. "Every time we try to scan it, the results are different. It's like it's alive." Kate nodded from her station. "The quantum patterns are unlike anything we've ever seen. This isn't just advanced technology. This is something completely new." Lisa felt the artifact grow warm in her hands. For a moment, she could have sworn she heard something like a voice whispering in her mind. But when she tried to focus on it, the feeling disappeared. "Keep working on it," she said. "I know we're close to a breakthrough." Meanwhile, Jake Morrison was on his way to meet Raxtar in the ruins of an abandoned mining station. The meeting place was dangerous, deep in Federation space, but Jake knew they needed this alliance. The Karathi leader was waiting for him in the station's old cafeteria. Raxtar was 8 feet tall, covered in golden fur, with green eyes that seemed to see everything. His warriors stood behind him, their weapons ready but not threatening. "Human," Raxtar said in heavily accented English. "You came alone. That shows either courage or stupidity." Jake smiled. "Maybe both, but we're here to help each other." Raxtar studied him for a long moment. Your people and mine have something in common. The Federation promises freedom, but delivers only chains. They speak of peace while they destroy our worlds. Then we fight together, Jake said simply. Raxtar's mouth opened in what Jake hoped was a smile, showing sharp teeth. I like you, human. Yes, we will fight together, but first you must prove that your medical technology can save my people. Jake nodded and activated a portable medical scanner. Within minutes, he had identified the poison in Raxtar's bloodstream and administered the cure. The Karathi leader's eyes widened as his strength returned. Incredible, Raxtar said. In 5 minutes, you have done what our doctors could not do in 5 years. We're just getting started, Jake replied. Back on Omega Station, Alex was receiving more good news. The deep sworn, an aquatic species from the ocean worlds, had agreed to share their biotechnology in exchange for human computer systems. The Lumini, beings made of pure energy, wanted access to human art and music, offering their knowledge of power generation in return. But the best news came from Ryan Walsh, a quantum engineer who had been working with Lisa's team. He burst into the command center with excitement written all over his face. "Commander, we've had a breakthrough," Ryan said. "The predecessor artifacts aren't just storing information. They're connected to something bigger." Alex leaned forward. "What do you mean?" "We think they're part of a network," Ryan explained. "Like a galactic internet, but operating on quantum principles we barely understand. If we can access it, we might be able to communicate with other predecessor sites across the galaxy." Alex felt his heart racing. "What would that mean for us?" "It means the Federation hasn't found all the predecessor technology," Ryan said. "There might be entire worlds full of this stuff, just waiting for someone smart enough to use it." The breakthrough came 3 days later. Lisa was alone in the laboratory when the artifact in her hands suddenly blazed with light. Information flooded her mind, not in words or pictures, but in pure understanding. She saw the galaxy as the predecessors, had seen it, filled with networks of quantum energy that connected every star system, but more importantly, she understood something that made her hands shake with excitement. The predecessors hadn't disappeared. They had evolved beyond physical form, becoming beings of pure thought and energy, and they had been waiting for a species worthy of their knowledge. Lisa ran to the communication console and sent an emergency message to Alex. "We need to meet immediately. I know where the Federation is getting their predecessor technology, and I know how to stop them." The message that came back from Alex was brief but full of hope. "On my way. And Lisa, whatever you've discovered, we're going to need it. Our scouts report that the Federation is building something big near the galactic core, something that will give them control over every species in the galaxy." As Lisa waited for Alex to arrive, she looked at the 3 artifacts glowing softly on her workbench. The Federation thought they had won by trapping humanity in the Sol system. They thought they could steal predecessor technology and use it to control the galaxy. They had no idea that they had just given humanity the motivation and the time to unlock secrets that would change everything. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the New Horizons, watching the alien world of Kepler 442b grow larger on the main screen. The planet looked peaceful from space, with purple oceans and silver continents that sparkled in the light of twin suns. It was hard to believe that something so beautiful held secrets that could change the entire galaxy. "Captain, we're getting clear readings from the surface," said Amy Rodriguez from her station. The young communications officer had been with Jake's crew for 3 years now, and he trusted her completely. "Dr. Hayes says the ruins are even bigger than we thought." Jake nodded and walked over to the science station where Pete Collins was running scans. Pete was the best engineer Jake had ever worked with, and if he looked worried, that usually meant trouble. "What's got you concerned, Pete?" Jake asked. Pete pointed at his screen. These energy readings don't make sense, Captain. The ruins have been dead for thousands of years, but my instruments keep picking up power signatures. It's like something down there is still alive. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. In his 20 years of space exploration, he had learned to trust his instincts. Right now, those instincts were telling him that this mission was going to change everything. The New Horizons landed near the ancient city 3 hours later. Jake led the away team himself, along with Dr. Lisa Hayes and her research assistants. Lisa was the best xenoarchaeologist in human space, and she had been studying alien ruins for most of her career. If anyone could figure out what they were dealing with, it was her. The ruins stretched for miles in every direction. Massive towers made of some unknown metal reached toward the sky, their surfaces covered in symbols that seemed to shift and change when nobody was looking directly at them. Walking through the empty streets felt like stepping into a dream. "Jake, you need to see this," Lisa called from inside what looked like a temple. Her voice echoed strangely in the vast chamber. Jake hurried to where she stood in front of a wall, covered in glowing symbols. The light pulsed in rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. Lisa was running her scanner over the symbols, and her face was pale with excitement. "These aren't just decorations," she said. "They're some kind of technology. My readings show that these symbols are storing massive amounts of information, more data than our best computers could hold." Jake leaned closer to examine the wall. The symbols seemed to respond to his presence, glowing brighter as he approached. "What kind of information?" "I'm not sure yet, but from what I can translate, it looks like technical specifications. Blueprints for machines we can't even imagine. Jake, I think we've found something incredible here." For the next 6 days, Lisa and her team worked around the clock to decode the alien technology. They discovered that the predecessors, as they started calling the vanished race, had developed ways to manipulate space and time itself. They could create matter from pure energy, travel instantly across the galaxy, and build machines that seemed to violate the basic laws of physics. Jake sent regular reports back to Earth and to the Galactic Federation headquarters. The Federation was a loose alliance of 47 different alien species that governed trade and politics across the galaxy. Humans had joined 50 years ago, and it had been the greatest moment in human history. On the 7th day, everything changed. Jake was in his quarters when Amy's voice came over the intercom. "Captain, you need to get to the bridge right now. We're receiving an urgent message from Federation Command." Jake rushed to the bridge to find his crew gathered around the main screen. The image showed Ambassador Kethaval, a tall, thin alien with gray skin and large black eyes. The Zephyrian species had been one of the founding members of the Federation, and Kethaval was one of their most respected diplomats. "Captain Morrison," the ambassador said, his voice cold and formal. "By order of the Federation Council, you and your crew are to cease all research activities immediately. The planet Kepler 442b is hereby declared a restricted zone." Jake felt his stomach drop. "Ambassador, with respect, we've made some important discoveries here. This technology could benefit all Federation species." Kethaval's large eyes seemed to glow with anger. "That is precisely the problem, Captain. The Council has reviewed your reports, and we have determined that humanity is not ready for such advanced technology. Your species is too young, too unpredictable. You would only cause chaos with such power." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Jake and his crew staring at a blank screen. Before anyone could speak, Amy spoke up from her station. "Captain, I'm picking up multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace. They're surrounding us." Jake looked at the tactical display and felt his heart sink. 12 Federation warships had appeared around Kepler 442b, their weapons powered and ready. These weren't exploration vessels like the New Horizons. These were military ships designed for one purpose: destruction. "Sir," Pete said quietly, "they're hailing us." The screen flickered to life again, showing the bridge of a Federation cruiser. The captain was a crystalline being, its body made of living mineral that sparkled in the ship's lights. "Human vessel, you have 30 minutes to evacuate the planet and return all artifacts to the surface. Any attempt to remove predecessor technology will be considered an act of piracy." Jake made a decision that would haunt him for years to come. "Lisa, grab whatever you can carry. Pete, prep the ship for emergency departure. Amy, send a message to Earth Command. Tell them what's happening here." They barely made it off the planet before the Federation ships opened fire. Jake watched from the pilot's seat as energy beams destroyed the temple where they had made their discoveries. Thousands of years of alien history vanished in seconds, but Lisa had managed to save 3 small artifacts, devices no bigger than her hand that contained more advanced technology than anything humans had ever seen. She clutched them tightly as the New Horizons jumped to hyperspace, fleeing toward the edge of Federation space. They didn't get far before Amy picked up more bad news from the communication networks. The Federation Council had called an emergency session. By a vote of 46-1, humanity had been expelled from the Galactic Federation. The news got worse over the following days. Human colonies throughout the galaxy were being seized by Federation forces. Human traders were arrested and their ships confiscated. All human vessels were ordered to return to the Sol system immediately, or face destruction. Jake watched from a hidden asteroid base as Federation fleets took position around every jump point leading to Earth. A massive energy barrier was erected around the entire solar system, trapping 4 billion humans inside their home system like prisoners. The aliens had made their message clear. Humanity was no longer welcome among the stars. They were alone, cut off from the galaxy they had once called home. But as Jake looked at the 3 predecessor artifacts that Lisa had saved, he couldn't help but wonder if the Federation had made a terrible mistake. They thought banning Earth would stop humanity. They had no idea what they had just unleashed.